Imagine if you documented your life 1 month at a time. What stories would you tell in 1 year and 12 pages? Think of the countless memories you would be able to save, not by journaling in hundreds of notebooks and spending lots of time, but with just one journal and 12 pages a year. 1 month documented at a time. This is how I've been documenting my life for the last several years. And today, I want to share with you a flip through of the last 12 months in my journal and how I've been able to document the small joys, the big moments, and everything in between. Documenting our memories is so important, and this is a format that I believe anybody can do. So if you are inspired by the end of this video to give it a try, I want to encourage you to consider joining our monthly journaling club, a free community over on my Patreon. You can learn more by checking out the link in the description, and we would love to have you join the community. But for now, let's settle in and maybe grab a warm drink because I have a long flip through for you. Even though it's only 12 entries, we are going to take our time and really walk through all of the details to give you as much inspiration as possible. And to make it a little easier to navigate, I have divided the video into the 4 quarters of the year. So let's begin with quarter 1. All right, fam, so here we are with the 12 pages that document my entire year. The first thing you will notice about all of my month in review entries is that I always put the title in the middle, and I like to do it in the same format so that way it's always cohesive for that year. So for this year, I decided to just use my really large alphabet stencil, which is available in my Amazon shop if you want to get it for yourself. And I just write out the title of the month using that in the center. That way I can really build all of the memories and things that I want to document for the month around that title. And it helps to free up my mind when it comes to a layout, and I get less precious about things falling in a certain order, and I can just put them wherever instead of getting into a chronological mindset. Under the title, I decided to write out a verse from Jeremiah 29, and you can see this entry covers a lot of ground. We have events and travel experiences. We have a show that we enjoyed watching, a mini-series called Chernobyl. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. I have commentary about the books I was reading. I read The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell and Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools, and just did really sweet little illustrations in a more abstract way for those book covers, which I really liked doing that. That's something I'd like to repeat in future months. And I just did a little bit of hand lettering to describe the fact that it was a slower reading month for me because I've been trying to focus more on quality over quantity. I also recorded our first big home purchase, which was a new heating system. So I have this sticker of the girl all bundled up, and the fact that I was also a little under the weather. So we have the kettle being put on here. And every sticker that you see on this side of the page, every single one of these, is actually a sticker from one of my Patreon sticker collections. I create printables every single month for my patrons, and there is a huge backlog, an entire archive of sticker collections from previous months that you get immediate access to. So I would love for you to consider joining us over on Patreon, and you'll get access to these stickers. I have a little bit of journal inception up here in the corner, and also the fact that I had a really successful video actually about my monthly journaling to start that year called This Changed How I Journal. I recommend you check out that one if you want to learn more about the Why I monthly journal. That is definitely a great video to go and watch next. And at this time, I had 29,000 subs, which means I essentially gained about 6,000, 7,000 subs in the last year. So thank you so much to all of you who are subscribed and have joined in the last year. And if you're not already, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and truly become part of the Abiding fam. Another highlight from this month was the beginning of our training for Mount Rainier. So I just wrote training hard with this photo of me. I can't believe this is January. I'm outdoors in a t-shirt, and I loved using these word stickers to describe this. Sometimes you can get what you want most after you stick to what you don't want to do most. And I thought that was so perfectly fitting for the concept of training. I also have this sticker of walking the dog, or in this case, going on a run with Carrie Jeannie, our dog, and trying to get more into tracking my exercise as well at that time with my Fitbit. And of course, we had a really fantastic trip to North Conway. We've gone there every year for the past few years to climb Mount Washington and some of the other presidential peaks and go ice climbing. And for this trip, we were able to summit Mount Adams and Mount Madison, and the views were absolutely spectacular. And again, I love how the word strips are repeated here. It just adds a nice cohesion to the page. And you can see it says, "Everyone should explore something new and engrave it in his heart." I also have a few comments about work-related things. Since I do spend a lot of my time at my day job, it always seems appropriate to record a little bit of what's happening there as well. And finally, something that was a sadder part of this month was saying goodbye to my Aunt Nancy, who passed away, and I wanted to honor her memory by including her in here. So my month in review pages, as you are going to see, are not only the big, exciting highlights or the small, joyous moments of the everyday, but also sometimes the difficult parts of life as well. And I think that it's important to include those as reminders of the things that you also get through. Next, we have February, and I definitely had quite a few books I wanted to document. So I read The Wind in the Willows, which is a classic, and The Girl from Guernica by Karen Robards, which was a new release that I absolutely loved. I read it at the library and now would very much like to own my own copy of it. And I used my public library sticker and then these stickers as well from my bibliophile book lover sticker collection. And then I also used this original illustration that is available as a sticker on Patreon that I did in watercolor. And this sticker is one that I just love. It's a cute little bookcase under the window with the rain falling outside, and it just represented all of our cozy time reading inside really well. I also wrote down a favorite quote from The Wind in the Willows. Here you can see more training in progress, which I think is so fun about these entries because I can see my progress through each month as we get closer to August, and also it documents how hard I was working to achieve my goals. So again, we just have me going on a run with Jeannie, this time down to the river, which is always my favorite place to go and do a run. And we also enjoyed some hikes. February was really abnormally warm this last year. It was the second warmest on record. So I have this great little photo of me with my coffee, and I have a caption on it from an Instagram story where I said, "Spring, is that you? It's supposed to be 70 today." So that just helped to really illustrate the fact that we had a very abnormally warm winter this year. We also had some of these flowers peeking through. There was no snow at all during February, which was a little sad for me. I personally enjoy getting to see snow in the wintertime. And at the same time, while all this was happening, it was interesting that Mount Washington had one of its coldest days ever in this month and was colder than the average temperature on Mars. So I just thought that fact was really interesting and wanted to include that in here since we have climbed Mount Washington. So those little details can be really fun to include in your monthly review spreads or general journaling too, is just to note down any interesting facts that you might be learning along the way or as it pertains to the weather or what's happening in your area. Can all be really interesting to look back on. I also like to include things that I'm learning. In this case, it was something from this book that I was reading called Breath, the New Science of a Lost Art by James Nestor, all about the power of breathing. I also like to document things that I've been meaning to do forever, and when I finally do it, it just feels so good. And hanging art was one of those things that I had been meaning to do for a while, and I finally did it this month, so I just took a little photo of our art hanging on the wall, and I discovered my new favorite show, All Creatures Great and Small. It is so wholesome and like a warm hug after a long day, as I wrote here. I highly recommend you watch the show if you haven't seen it. It's on PBS. And this sticker is also available on Patreon and very fitting for All Creatures Great and Small because it does indeed make my soul very happy. Next, we move on to March, and here we again see spring coming quite early, so I've just documented that here with reading outside in my hammock, reading The Secret Garden, and so I have a photo here of one of the illustrations from the edition I have, which is so stunningly beautiful, and also a quote from, again, The Secret Garden that is about spring, so it's both fitting because of the book I was reading, but also because it is documenting this time in the year, so I've put that in here. Another thing I like to include are things that I'm currently loving or enjoying, and Miranda Mills on YouTube, she is primarily a booktuber. She hosts something called the Comfort Book Club and also lives in the English countryside, so always has the most beautiful images of her surroundings, and she really appreciates seasonal living just like I do. Another thing you can keep in mind is any interesting local news. So we had some really interesting hometown news that actually became, I think, national news here in the US about a explosion that happened in a chocolate factory not far from where I grew up. So I just thought that was an interesting bit of news and from my own area, so went ahead and recorded that here with the headline. One of my highlights from this month was having a girls' weekend at my house. This was the first time that I had my two best friends visit me in our new home. We went out and had high tea together. We did some painting at home and just had a ton of fun just catching up and spending time together. So I've documented that here with this great photo of the three of us and some stickers again from Patreon. We also had our women's retreat for church, so I just wrote a little note about that with a photo that I took while enjoying some time at a cafe during that retreat. This is a fun little corner documenting the fact that we were celebrating St. Patrick's Day really throughout the month. I have Irish in my family background, and it was something my mom always leaned into, so I'm sort of continuing that tradition. So we listened to lots of Celtic women, which we pretty much do anyways. We love Celtic women in this house. And then we also drank lots of Irish breakfast tea, and I always love making corned beef and cabbage for St. Patrick's Day. But this time, I actually turned the leftover broth from the corned beef into a French onion soup, and it was absolutely amazing. It was honestly the best French onion soup I've ever had. So I went ahead and wrote down the recipe for myself so that way I can reference it for future years, because I really do want that to be a new tradition. And how cute to stick it in the little tea bag as a pocket, if I can get it back in there, that is, of course. So the Irish breakfast tea bag was, again, something we were enjoying a lot of. Gotta drink Irish breakfast tea in the lead up to St. Patrick's Day. And so I just captured that here by using the tea bag itself. So always be looking for those opportunities to bring packaging or receipts or tickets or whatever those little ephemera pieces are from your everyday life that are just going to bring those memories to life in such a deeper way. I also documented my birthday dinner with 2 of our friends that Ben planned, and also a little gift that I got for myself from Patsy Shaw, an amazing Christian artist. Highly recommend you check her out. And then finally, just a few other little highlights, either from work or having a birthday lunch with my dad, going on a hike or a Bible study. And then we also celebrated that our 2 friends from our Bible study had a successful adoption and now have welcomed 2 children into their forever family, which is such a blessing from God. So we are praising Him for that. Next, we have April, and this is one of my favorite layouts. I think because of the colors, I just love all of the greens and the yellows and how it really does feel like a breath of fresh air and spring coming into the page. You can see that a lot throughout my month in review journaling, that I really do tend to lean towards colors that feel like they match the season that month is in. So for April, we have lots of fun things happening in our garden. It was so much fun this last year to just see our garden come to life, because we didn't know what was planted there. We just knew that our previous homeowner was a big gardener. So she had so many beautiful flowers popping up, and it was a delight each morning to walk out and see what was in bloom and what new surprises there were. We also had a flock of cedar waxwings, which are just such a beautiful bird, show up in our big pine tree in the backyard, and so I wanted to document that by doing a little illustration. I really would like to do more illustrations in my month in review journaling going into the future. I just think it adds such a beautiful personal touch. We also celebrated Easter at our home and were able to invite people to come celebrate with us. So that was a really special gathering, and I just used this card that we received from our neighbors for Easter to write that in here, and then the front of the card had this beautiful image of a garden coming to life. So that was perfect for documenting our garden. So definitely also think about those types of things like cards and invitations and how those might be able to be incorporated into your journal as well. And while we were definitely enjoying the start of spring, I had some days where I was able to enjoy some hammock weather. There also were April showers. So on the first day of trout, it was very rainy to start the day when all the boys went out to fish. So I used this sticker that said, "Bring your own sunshine." Some other highlights from the month include having my dad's dog, Max, come and stay with us for a week. And so we had him as a special guest, but not just him, also all of his hair and slobber. We also went out to get some sushi with some friends, so I documented that over here. We watched some shows and movies that we really enjoyed, so I just did a little top 3 list. Creating lists like this is also a great way to incorporate some of your favorite things in each month. And then we also were enjoying some more hikes. We're always hiking at some point during the month and enjoying nature. And one of my favorite things is seeing the bluebells come in. Otherwise, April was also a month where I just had to get a lot of practical things done that weren't necessarily fun but needed to get done. So that included summer travel prep. I had to get my passport renewed. We had to get our travel vaccinations and book our Airbnbs and where we were staying. I had to get my wisdom teeth out and had it dry socket, so I documented that in here. And you can see I used cutouts from some of the informational pamphlets that the dentist gave me. And then I also had to go through all of my mom's art supplies. She had so many craft supplies and a huge craft room, so I devoted an entire weekend to just finally going through that. And of course, there's so many memories tied into it as well. She was a huge scrapbooker, so going through all of her items was also going through all of the memories. So it was definitely a really hard task, but I was glad to get it done. And then finally, we had to get a new car, and so I have that documented. So a very full month for April. Next, we move into May and reach the halfway point of our year. And you can see for this month, I used a lot of photos. And the trick to using a lot of photos is to make sure that you are printing them small. And the way that I do that is by simply creating a collage on a 4x6 photo paper and then print them out that way. Then you can just cut them out and use them as smaller photos throughout your journal. We had a lot of different events and get-togethers, so lots of time with friends over here, and then also time with family. We had a really special evening going to an awards ceremony where they created an award in honor of my mom. She was an ICU nurse, and they created an award called the Spirit of Caring Award and presented it in recognition of a nurse who showcased the same amazing qualities that my mom did when she was a nurse, because she was so committed to, as it says, applying the principles of relationship-based care and always putting her patients and the families first. And I just was so honored to be there for that evening. It was really nice of them to invite me and my dad to be able to see that award given in her honor. During this month, I also created a memorial garden in honor of my mom in my little garden in the backyard, and she always loved the idea of butterflies being a representation of our lost loved ones. So I planted a lot of flowers that attract butterflies, and also put at the center this beautiful piece that lights up in the middle. It's a lotus flower, which is a symbol of resilience. Speaking of the garden, I also documented some more of the flowers that have come in. We had some beautiful poppies and primroses, and I also used this great sticker by Patsy Shaw. I also enjoyed some really sweet mornings out in the garden on the hammock with my Bible and coffee and the sun shining and the birds chirping and the flowers all around me. And so this is just a very simple list, as you can see, of writing those things down that made my mornings so special. So creating very simple lists like this, using different colors, you could do it in a bullet point fashion, but those sorts of things are really great ways to remember small little things that you're enjoying. I have another little map of one of my runs as I continue to improve. So again, documenting training and seeing that improvement every single month. We also got to go to the river and just spend some time fishing and reading together. So that was a really nice date night. I, again, documented some work-related things since that does occupy so much of our time. And then some hikes, again, using our weighted packs and just climbing hills over and over again in preparation for our big climb. And then we also saw a rattlesnake on this hike. So I had this great little sticker that just said, "Nope," and I drew an arrow to the rattlesnake. I again documented the books I was reading with a quote and the titles, These two books I listened to on audio, and they happen to be about financial independence. And then I also documented our 4-year anniversary. We got married in May, 4 years ago from this year, so we're coming up on 5 years now, which is really exciting. And then also a few less exciting things. We had to pay for a new sump pump for our home and have been having some issues with a leaking toilet. So I just wrote a little title with an ongoing saga because it was just a recurring issue. So a little bit of humor and poking fun at some of the more difficult moments of life and the things that are just frustrating and kind of not things that you want to deal with, but are part of just what it means to be human and to live life in the 21st century. I think those are actually fun things to include as well and will be entertaining to look back on. And now we have June, which was a really special month for us because at the end of June, we went to Ecuador. We were invited by our two best friends that come up regularly in my journal. And in this case, they invited us to go on a trip to Ecuador with 30 high school students. Our friend Emily is an amazing Spanish teacher, and we got to be chaperones for a trip to Ecuador with 30 of her students. It was an absolutely incredible trip, and I did my best to summarize it by choosing some of my favorite photos to create a collage with the title of where we went in the year, and then created a list down the side here in the colors of the Ecuador flag of just some of the highlights of the things that we did and enjoyed or experienced. I also created pages for Ecuador in my travel journal, and I'll be sharing that with you all in a future video. Of course, my month in review journal is also a place for me to document the smaller events and things happening right in my own backyard, literally. So here we have, again, documenting the flowers as they're coming in. That was just such a fun experience from this past spring and summer because it was all a surprise. But this was a fun way of documenting the flowers where I just created a collage of 4 of them and then used numbers to label each one and then wrote down the names that are associated with those numbers. So you could do that with flowers in your garden. You could do it with events or people you spent time with or meals that you made and enjoyed. So this is a great little vignette that you could easily transfer to your own journaling. I also documented the books I read again. That is something you're going to see in pretty much every single month because I am an avid reader. My mother-in-law and I went to our local fair and got ice cream together, so I used some of these fun stickers from the Everyday Adventures collection that is available on my Patreon. That has a lot of really fun stickers to document exploring your own backyard and enjoying activities like little road trips and going downtown and just being in your own area. And here I just have some little stickers to document some smaller moments of the month, like getting tea with a friend, going out to lunch, hitting the gym. Again, used some stamps here to write out that title. We did a lot of stair steppers during this month as we were preparing for climbing. Trail running was something that I really enjoyed doing this month. As we continued to prep for our big trips, we also got new carry-ons from TJ Maxx. So I just used the tag from the carry-ons from the store right here in my journal. So another great example of those little ephemera pieces that add a more personal touch to your journal. And then finally, up in this corner, I do like to document big news events that are happening in the world. And of course, the Canada wildfires was a very big issue that was not only devastating Canada, but also affecting even us here in the US with really poor air quality. So I wanted to document that and how that was impacting us because I feel that our journals are not only meant to be a reflection of our lives and what we're experiencing in terms of events and everything that we are doing on the day-to-day, but also the reality of the time that we're living in and the place that we're living, and basically be a historian of sorts, so that when people look back on this journal, it also points to some of the realities of living in this time. And then finally, I have this great abstract art piece that was a sticker provided for free by one of the artists at a gallery that we went to when we went out to eat. And that wraps up June. July is a really fun entry. This spread, I just love the colors. It really screams summer. And one of my favorite parts of this spread is this corner over here where I created a collage of sorts of all of the simple things I love about summer. So some of these are my own photos that I just cut out so that they had the feeling more of stickers. So this swallowtail is one that was visiting my mom's memorial butterfly garden, so I wanted to document that. And then this is a red eft, which is a juvenile eastern newt, and I just love seeing these little guys when we're on a hike, and they are just so brilliant and beautiful, and a brilliant display of God's glory all around us. Walking to our local ice cream shop is always fun, especially because Karajini is so cute when she gets her little pup cup, and picking raspberries right off the bush and just getting to eat them as you're enjoying a walk, eating what's in season. So I have a little avocado here, and then making sun tea regularly by just placing a big jar of water with tea bags in it outside so that the summer heat is what brews the tea is always a really fun thing I enjoy doing too. So this was just a really simple way of documenting things that were actually happening throughout the month, but also documenting what I enjoy and things that are regularly favorites for me and how I personally appreciate the season. So I definitely recommend, especially as you're entering a month where it's a new season, if you're not really sure what to journal about, journaling about the simple things that you love about that month or that season is a great way to start. Another small thing that you might not think to journal about is just little wins that happen throughout the month. So one of our little wins is that we fixed our leaky toilet that you heard about in the previous month. Again, I have an example of documenting local news and also documenting the books that I'm reading. This one I used quite a lot of space to document reading All Creatures Great and Small because it was probably my favorite book of the year. Just like it's my favorite show, it's just so cozy and heartwarming and charming and wholesome. I love the book and I can't wait to continue reading the books in the series. And this image, which is one of my printables from the Afternoon Tea collection, if you want to find this exact sticker, that is where you'll find this one. And I just love the way it looks and really just represents the vibe of that book. Down here, I documented going to a wedding, and my favorite moment from that was dancing with my niece. I did go to the movies twice this month and did participate in the whole Barbenheimer craze. I still don't fully understand why that was a thing, but it was, so it just so happened that I was invited to go see Barbie with some friends. Ben and I really wanted to see Oppenheimer, so we went to see that. And so I've documented them both here. And that also, I think, will be a fun cultural moment to look back on. So those are also things that I think are interesting and fun to include in your journal, are those weird cultural sensational moments where everybody seems to get into a weird pop culture craze about a certain thing. Those are fun to document and look back on and be like, wow, why did we make that such a thing? I don't know, but there it is. I also documented the fact that I had a very bad cold, and so I love this sticker that says just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. That too is actually from the Afternoon Tea collection. And then a little tissue box as well. That being said, we still did get some training in with a few hikes that I just created a list of here. Again, a picture of the stair stepper, my worst enemy, but also the thing that got me to the top of the mountain, so we're gonna celebrate it here. And I also recorded the fact that I had some gluteal tendonitis, which basically meant that my hip was really bothering me for a while here, so mentioned that. And also did our shopping for our climb, which meant a lot of gear that is very, very expensive, so my wallet was sad. But I think that's fun to look back on too. And then finally, we enjoyed a worship and prayer night at a friend's house. And so I drew a little violin here, or attempted to anyways, to document that, and then have the little house sticker. And then our church also has picnics in the park during the summer, so we enjoyed going to that as well. And then we reached the month that it feels like a lot of this year has been leading up to, as we continued to train and train for our Mount Rainier climb. And here we are in August, and it is so fun to be able to look back on this now and say that you go girl, you did it. So we did in fact summit Mount Rainier. I plan to share a video with some travel journal spreads and some clips of our climb with you all in the future, so definitely subscribe and stay tuned for that. I'm really excited to show you how I travel journal in an upcoming video, but this is again a great example of just capturing the main highlights of a big trip. So I picked a few photos from Mount Rainier and Olympic and made a collage again with the title, and then again a bulleted list of all of the main highlights that I wanted to capture here. I also had this sticker that I got from the national park that records how high the elevation is of Rainier. And then I have this little health data sticker that is in one of my printable collections. I can't quite remember which one it is at this moment, but this has a place for you to write steps, activity, sleep, and other. So I wrote 80,000 steps is how many we took to climb it. Our activity was climbing. I, believe it or not, somehow climbed that mountain on absolutely 0 hours of sleep. I was awake for more than 48 hours and climbed that mountain. And then the other, I wrote 1 blister, because that indeed was part of the climb as well. But I did get ahead of myself a little bit here, because before we had the climb, we had some final days of training, and I did a fun little script where I kind of followed the outline of the stickers. Again, just fun ways to make your journaling visually interesting, is to change up how you write, not always doing it in a straight line, not always using the same pens or the same fonts. Those are all fun ways to add a little bit more visual interest to your journaling. I got some dinner with my dad at one of my all-time favorite restaurants if you're ever in Lancaster City. It's called Callaloo, and it's a Trinidadian restaurant. It is absolutely amazing. Highly recommend. And then we also had our annual family crab fest that we do with my dad's side of the family. And then here in a little bulleted list on a sticker, I wrote out some of my work-related highlights of the fact that I was very busy at work. Book that I was reading. I got this beautiful vintage Depression era buffet table. I'd been looking for one for a very long time and found this on Facebook Marketplace. So have a cute little sticker that says embrace what is good, and then documenting that great find. We celebrated Ben's birthday. We had another picnic in the park, and I also got a new phone and an Apple Watch because my Fitbit bit the dust on our trip. So luckily it worked through our climb, so I was able to record the data for that, but afterwards it was dead. So I had to get a new watch and decided to go with an Apple Watch. And then as we move into September, we fully transition from the summer vibes to fall. Using seasonal stickers to represent the time of year that I'm in is always something I really enjoy. So I have some Hello Fall stickers and these pumpkins. They are one of my older fall collections on Patreon. And then I created also this really fun little shaker insert. If I can show you that, how it kind of like moves the little pieces in there. And I did some leaves on the outside, and then on the inside, you can see there is a leaf that I actually pressed. So that was a fun way to preserve this leaf and incorporate it into my journal. And I did film the creation of this spread as well as many of the other spreads that I've shared with you so far as journal with me. And you can see the process from blank page to finished spread and really join me in the journaling process. So I highly recommend you check those out if you want a little bit more of the how-to and to see how I create some of the elements like this one. So I also documented the hike that we were on where I found that leaf, collecting nature's treasures. And these are just some of my favorite fall things: squirrels on the hunt for acorns, a pickup game with friends. They are all part of my most recent fall collection. I got to go to this amazing fundraising dinner for my work. So I documented that here by cutting out my favorite part of the menu and putting that into my journal. We celebrated my nephew's 1-year birthday and some movies that we saw as part of a date night and just hanging out at home. We had a great family reunion with our extended family, so I've documented that here. And then also just again some fun thrifting, hanging out with my friend, so that's documented up here. And I also love documenting the books I'm reading, enjoying some fun drinks with the same stickers, and using the same stickers throughout an entry that are all from the same collection are a really great way to add some nice cohesion to your spread. And then finally, I also documented the fact that this month was not all roses and sunshine or falling leaves and sunshine, but also had some sad parts to it as well. September is now always a hard month for me because it's the month that my mom passed away and is also her birth month. So we have made it a tradition to go kayaking in her memory every single September. So we just have a picture here of us enjoying that time together and reflecting on continuing to miss my mom. All right, friends, we have 3 more months left, and if you have made it to this point, I'm going to assume that you are in it for the long haul. So if you have made it to this point of the video, say hello in the comments and leave me a little yellow heart that lets me know that you are one of the true abiding fan members who has made it all the way to the last segment of this flip through. Here we are in October, and for this month we are continuing with the very fun fall vibes. We have some leaves and some washi tape that has some leaves on it as well. And then also these really beautiful feathers. How gorgeous are those? These are real pheasant feathers that I've incorporated here in the journal to document pheasant hunting because that is part of our life. That is something that Ben really enjoys doing. It provides meat on the table and our dog loves it as well. So I also have this little image of a dog up here in the corner. We also went to the Hawk Watch to celebrate my mother-in-law's birthday. We also had a really fun camping and caving weekend trip with our friends. So I just documented that here with a few photos from the trip. We went to this beautiful place called Dolly Sods in West Virginia, and I drew a few little bats around the caving since it is October, but we literally did see bats in the cave, so it's not just for representing the spooky season, but is literally representing going caving. My 2 best friends both have birthdays in October, and we were celebrating turning 30 this year, so I have some photos from their parties and just documenting that. Ben and I had some really sweet weekends together, specifically Sundays, so I just wrote a little list literally of the things that we would do on a Sunday. Simple things: going to the gym, taking a walk, reading together, watching a movie, but those are the little things that make life so special. So I love having that documented. Of course, there was a lot of hard things happening in the world in October with Israel and Hamas and that war beginning. There was a shooting in Maine, and I, like so many others, was just feeling a lot of the weight on my soul and on my heart in terms of what was happening and all of the violence that happens in this world. I am so beyond blessed to not have experienced that violence firsthand, and I'm praying for everybody who has or will. But it's definitely an emotional time for everybody when those things are happening. So I wanted to honor that in some way here and what I was feeling and experiencing, and use this also as a space to pray to God for His refuge and strength. So I would encourage you to not be afraid of incorporating those sorts of news items or hard things even in your own personal life. They can be really important to look back on as well. And on a much happier note, I also did document again the books I was reading, this time with this great sticker again from that fall collection that just talks about reading a spooky book on a dark night, and listed the books that I was reading here, and also had a fun secondhand clothing haul from my mother-in-law again, and so I have this cute little sweater sticker on here as well. In November, we of course celebrated Thanksgiving since we live in the United States. I have some fun stickers from my Joyful Gatherings collection to document that time with family. I also went to a new cafe, which I really enjoyed, so I put that here and used this great mushroom sticker that I had in my collection from Obujo. A lot of my stickers that I use, if they're not ones I created for my Patreon, are from Obujo, and I highly recommend you check out their shop. I have a discount code in the description. And the cafe is mushroom themed, so this was a very fitting sticker for that. And then my best friend and I always go Black Friday shopping, and now have a new tradition of making homemade ravioli for that day, as well as just a holiday treat for ourselves when we spend time together. So I have that documented here, the whole process of making our ravioli. And then I also spent time with my mother-in-law and my niece to go Small Business Saturday shopping, and we got lunch together and just had a really nice time. I also documented some of the movies we saw, including a few in theaters. Ben is a hunter and had a really successful opening day by getting 2 does, which is great for our freezer and not having to buy meat this year. And then the really big highlight for November was getting to go to the Outer Banks. We actually thought that we weren't going to get to go this year because our family members who own the house where we stay each year and have for the last several years are selling it. So we thought we weren't going to get to go, but they hadn't sold the house yet, and we were able to work it out to be able to go one last time. And it was such a special trip, and it was just me and Ben and Karajini, which is the first time we ever went there, just the 2 of us, or 3 of us, I should say. And it was just a really sweet time together, getting to enjoy that house one more time. And I did put in a tip in on this page to have a few more highlights documented here. I did cut out some words from brochures and stickers that I picked up along the way, just to add, again, some fun ephemera pieces from the actual trip. And we also got to go to church for the first time and got to go to the chapel that is there. And then, of course, we also went to the Island bookstore. I go there every year and always buy a book. The last item I included on this page is a cutout from a tea box of the Celestial Seasonings. The Caramel Apple Dream is one of my all-time favorite teas that they make, and I highly recommend it. If you see it ever around in your store, definitely get a box and give it a try. And then finally, we are back in winter with the final month of the year, of course, December. And on my channel, I have a fun process video for this part of this journal entry, which is called a waterfall card. And essentially, when you push here, the cards go up one by one, and you get to see all of these additional photos and journaling that I was able to include in this page by adding this really fun interactive tip-in. So if you want to learn how to make this, definitely check out the video. I'll have it up in the cards for you. This was my contribution for Junk Journal January this year, and I had so much fun creating it. And it basically just documents all of the highlights of Christmas itself. We had a lot of parties that we went to throughout the Christmas season, and also got to spend time with a lot of family and friends. So I just have those different traditions and experiences and spending time with family documented on these cards. And the theme for Junk Journal January was throwback. So I also added in another interactive element, which is a pocket. So here I just made a little throwback card for the theme with my two best friends from 2013, so literally 10 years ago. This idea of doing throwbacks is another great tip if you are someone who is struggling to think of what to include that month. Maybe you don't have enough highlights or memories that you want to record from the year that you're in, but maybe there are some memories that you don't already have recorded in your journal that you want to make a throwback addition to your journal for. So think about those things too. You could write about a favorite childhood memory from that month. You could write about someone you love who was born in that month and do a little ode to that person. So there's definitely a lot of options for these month in review spreads that go beyond just what you did in that particular season. Some other fun Christmas activities that we enjoyed in the month of December included decorating cookies. My friend hosts this party every year, and it's always a great time of decorating the cookies that she makes. She made so many, and we just get together and get to have fun being creative and icing them. Also had lots of hot cocoa with marshmallows and watched many Hallmark Christmas movies. All of these stickers are from the Christmas Cottage collection that's available on my Patreon. I also went to our church's women's Christmas party that we've been doing for the last few years, and we have many work-related Christmas parties as well. So lots and lots of celebrating the Christmas season. I also went to Barnes & Noble, so I have this piece that I cut out from one of their bags to put here, and talked about a bibliophobia, which is another sticker from my book lover collection, which is defined as the fear of running out of books to read. It's a real thing. So I used that to talk about browsing at Barnes & Noble and finally deciding to become a premium awards member there. I also had the start of my winter break and recorded that with this cute little snooze illustration that is from my tiny book of tiny pleasures from a Flow magazine, and I love the illustrations in here, so every now and then I'll pick one out and cut them out to use in my journal. Using magazines is also a great way to get little illustrations that you might want to be able to save and cut out to stick in your journal as well. This one here about tidying up your mind or home to document the fact that I finally deep cleaned our fridge and our oven was another piece from that tiny book of tiny pleasures. Ben and I also enjoyed a lot of quality time together in different ways and went to Brownstone Cafe, which is a local cafe we love to go to, especially during the Christmas season. I read a great collection of classic stories and poems called A Vintage Christmas that I really enjoyed. And one of the big highlights for December was getting to say that I finally paid off my student loans. And it was definitely a big moment, but also not as gratifying as you would think because it's kind of just hitting a button that says goodbye to all of your money. But at the same time, it is a huge blessing to be able to finally put those behind me, and I am so grateful. So I highly recommend when you hit these kinds of milestones, when you accomplish something after a lot of hard work that you're proud of, make sure that that is reflected in your journal. We spent some time with friends, so I noted those 2 different dates and what we did on each of them. And I did get a cold after Christmas and had lots of tea, so I used this great sticker that is from the January sticker collection, and it is a little sticker that says throat comfort tea. So this is a great sticker to use to document when you have a cold or the flu. And then the final thing that I have on this page is this slow morning sticker, also from the January collection, and a little cutout from the coffee that I've been enjoying. It's mushroom coffee made by Rise, and I've been making lattes with it regularly and really do enjoy the taste and how it makes me feel. So that was one of my Christmas presents from Ben, and so I have that documented. So that is all of my month in review spreads. Now, because I always like to wrap up my reading at the end of a year, I did add in a book in review entry with all of the books that I read here on the side. And if you want to learn how to make one of these yourself featuring the book covers, I do have a video that shows you exactly how to create your own book in review layout using Canva. So I'll have that linked for you. And then I just wrote the titles of my top 10 over here and have a chart of my reading throughout the months in the bottom corner. That chart was created with the Storygraph app. That is how I track all of my reading, and I highly, highly recommend you check it out if you're an avid reader. It is such an amazing app for tracking your reading and getting to see how your reading stacks up over time. And then my last page for 2023 is just a year in review, a quick recap of everything that I've covered in the last 12 pages, the 12 months of my last year. I wanted to distill into a few little journal prompts. So these journal prompts are all part of the January journal prompt collection that you get access to when you become a patron. Every month I create journal prompts for my patrons, and for January, a lot of them had to do with looking back on the prior year and of course looking forward to the upcoming year. So I used some of the looking back prompts to create this page. One word to describe my year, lessons that I learned, favorite memories, what I'm proud of, and the challenge I overcame, and just did some quick little journaling to respond to those and spent some time looking over these pages and reflecting on my year. So I would encourage you when the year is over to not just stop at your December month in review, but take a little bit of time to look through all of your month in review pages, look at your year, everything that you did and accomplished and experienced, and do a little bit more reflection on how the year looked overall. So that was 2023. That is what it looks like to journal essentially 12 times a year, documenting 1 month at a time. Anybody can do this, and I believe that it is one of the best ways to be able to capture all of the highlights of our lives and make sure that those special moments, big or small, are not forgotten. So I hope that this has inspired you. I applaud you if you have stayed with me to this point in the video. I know it was a really long one, but I wanted to just sit down with you as an old friend and spend time really reflecting on each of these pages in depth. If you want to see how they were created, again, I do have journal with me's for many of them. And if you need more tips on how to get started, I have lots of videos about that too. But my big hope is that you would be inspired to give it a try this year and join us for the monthly journaling club. Again, you can join the monthly journaling club for free by heading over to my Patreon. If you want to learn more about the monthly journaling club, check out this playlist, or you might like my most recent video, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in the next one.